Good morning. It's Sunday, November 6th, and I saw an article which asked this question: which is safer for transporting crude oil, rail, truck, pipeline, or boat? Now, first you have to understand a couple of things. Number one is that 100% of natural gas is transported by pipe. Oil, on the other hand, is transported by pipeline 70% of the time. The other 30% is using trains and trucks and boats. Boats are really the major alternative to pipelines, and we have to understand that. Now, boats are relatively safe when it comes to the land environment. They're much more dangerous when there's a spill in the water, because you can clean up a land spill, probably 90-95% clean, but water is very difficult to clean once there's a spill. When we ask that question, we have to understand what the answer is liable to be. Is it better or worse to have the destruction in water or the destruction on land? Which one will affect lives more than the other? Who knows? So spills are dangerous wherever they occur. And obviously, there's much more chance of a spill with trucks and trains than there is in the pipelines. Pipelines, as I've said before, are very, very safe compared to the other methods of transporting oil. Now, another thing I never took into my thoughts is the fact that oil comes in many sizes, shapes, and forms. It's thick, it's thin. It comes from fracking, it comes from various other methods, and the method of oil getting it out of the ground is one thing, and the other method is the quality of the oil. Some is heavy oil, some is light oil. And all of these oils have to go to refineries to be processed so that they can be used. Oil right out of the ground is useless, but it has to go into a process to create something that is useful, like gasoline or kerosene or turpentine or whatever other product you need to create oil. And the interesting thing is that the last oil refinery totally built from scratch in this country was built in 1976. So that's 50 more years. 50 or more years ago since we've had a new refinery put in place. So there have been expansions to refineries around the country. Refineries that started out doing one type of processing and then added another type of processing to their arsenal. But the refineries are located basically in very few areas. California, Louisiana, maybe some in Texas. They're not all over the country. So the oil has to be transported to those refineries. And that in of itself is a monumental task. And listen, oil has been moved around this country for decades. Through the wilderness, through cities, through towns, across the deserts. And in many cases we have shut down existing pipes. So there are less pipelines in the country than there were before, but they're still responsible for transporting 70%. So if you recognize the fact that we have not built that many refineries, in fact they have shrunk the number of refineries in the country, then we must recognize that we have to transport this oil all over the place. And saying which is the best method is a critical piece of the puzzle. And I have no good answer for that right now. So if you want to look at spillage as a major criteria, then boat is better than train, and train is better than pipeline, and pipeline is better than truck. But in terms of environmental impact, if you measure spills from a different perspective, from an aquatic perspective, boat is the worst, then pipeline is the worst, then truck, then rail. So you've got a mix of different conditions in order to make your decision. And I don't care which way you look at it, the decision is not a very easy one to make. So the bottom line in answering this what appears to be a simple problem, but turns out to be a very complex question, what do you think the deciding factor might be in picking the best alternative to ship your oil? Many will look at this now and say it doesn't matter, we have to save money. Money comes into the equation as it always does. And money, if you look at money, then pipeline is a winner because it costs about $5 or so to ship a barrel of oil by pipeline, where it costs between $10 and $15 a barrel to ship it by truck, right? So if we look at the monetary value of shipping and the cost of shipping, that is a big factor. But then, when the federal government has said that a human life is worth about $8 million per human, then if you have a spill that kills humans, then the cost of that spill is more than the savings in the method of shipping. But recognizing the fact that a spill in the ocean is not necessarily going to kill humans, but it will kill aquatic life. Whereas if you have a spill on the land, that could affect many humans. And so the cost of a land spillage would put the whole thing out of perspective. And the same thing is true with rail. You know, rail is across land also. So it's cheaper by pipeline than truck or rail. And rail is the most flexible method because there are like 140,000 miles of track and many different routes that you can take on rail. Whereas pipeline goes one way. And trucks, on the other hand, are traveling miles and miles and miles, much more than pipelines travel. And let me say another thing, that building a railroad terminal is easier than building and permitting. That's not permitting the pipeline, it's permitting the pipeline, getting the paperwork to get the pipeline done. And so I don't care which way you look at this problem, it is a dilemma. And one has to choose human life, money, the need for the oil, the type of oil. This is not a simple problem that one can speak with over the dinner table and say this is the answer. Of course, it doesn't work that way. This is a very, very complex issue. And unfortunately, oil is a driving force in our economy. So it doesn't matter which way you want to transport it. You need to be able to transport it. That is the key. So I hope I haven't confused you thoroughly this morning. And I'll leave it go at that. But oil is going to be with us for a while yet. So we have to learn to live with it. And the companies ought to be responsible for anything that happens to it. So I'll leave you with that this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.